In order, everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we read the mission statement, please. Logansport Parks and Recreation Department is committed to building a vibrant and healthy community for future generations through accessible recreational facilities and programs that promote physical health, social engagement, conservation, and cultural appreciation. Okay, reminder all visitors, please sign in with their names and addresses at the podium. Everybody received a copy of the minutes from our November 13th regular meeting. Is there any additions or subtractions that need to be made? Okay. With there being none, we will move on to old business. Park Board Resolution 2024-15, amending the petty cash for Dyken golfers.
2009 is when we established that fund, and they were, what it is the state law requires that whenever you're getting alcoholic beverages at your retail establishment, you have to pay for them at the time of delivery. So anyway, we set $3,000 in 2009. Well, alcoholic beverages the prices have gone up significantly since 2009, and we're getting more deliveries more frequently. So $3,000, by the time you pay for 2 different trucks, which might be like $1,500, you wait for the claim to be made to the city, and then have to pay for another one the next week, or in 2 weeks even. You don't have any cash. So what we're asking for is an additional $3,000 to be, so the total of $6,000 to be in that petty cash. It's a checking account that Dean, myself, and I've added Kyle to this as the clubhouse manager, so that he can sign that check as well. And it's up to Dean to balance that checkbook regularly and can demonstrate that to the clerk treasurer upon request. And so we've not had any issues with it at all in the past 15 years. 16 years? 15 years. So anyway, so that's so I give you a copy of the 2009 request or what was done in 2009. And were any of you guys on the board then? Nope. Nobody was there. Just me. Anyway, so here we go. This is 2024. And any questions? Kyle, do you have anything to add?
So how does that work? So do you have you add money back? Is it a
So
regular check account, or is it special?
Kyle turns in the claim using the receipts that he paid for it, and then the claim gets a check written back to the Dyken Clubhouse checking account. So sometimes it's every week we get a check to replenish that money. So, but usually the claims are for one company is in the $700 to $800 range, and that's just when he has two different delivery companies that pay to bring beer and wine in. So. Kelly, do you have anything to add? Or?
You said it perfectly.
Okay, all right. Thank you. She said that to me.
Ready to vote on it, Dave?
Any other questions?
Just alcohol sales.
Say what?
I was just looking at the alcohol sales for the year. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is when you look at it. Yeah.
That's true.
That's what Logansport's good at, bars and churches.
Bars and churches and pizza places. Okay, we have a motion to accept Parks Board Resolution 2024-15, the resolution of the Logansport Parks and Recreation Board to amend Parking Resolution 2009-01, which establishes the golf course petty cash checking account from $3,000 to $6,000.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Parking Resolution 2024-15 is passed. New business, ADA assessment contract in 2025. David Mihalis, ADA
It's
consultant.
Mills, right?
Mills?
Mills,
Doesn't
okay.
look like Mills to me, but
Yeah,
okay.
this is David Mills and his father, David Mills. David, can you come over here where the microphone is?
Hello, I'm David Mills with ADA Consulting of Indiana. Thank you for having me here tonight. This is my father, Dave. He also works with us.
So David and I have been, I met David when I was working at West Lafayette, and he was able to guide them in a lot of things that I had no idea about, and he does. And so we have, and you've been given a, is this the revised version? So,
You got
okay.
It's supposed to be.
Okay.
I didn't sign that, by the way. I think I.
We'll get, okay, we'll get that. Anyway, so David and I looked at, we have a budget of $70,000 to take care of this next year. And I'm gonna let you talk about the basic, what you have to do that, what your plans are.
So what this is all about is it's a requirement of the Americans with Disabilities Act. In 2010, the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, was rewritten. It added a few new elements to cover that wasn't covered previously. For example, would be a pool lift, or miniature golf courses, or even golf courses, and shooting ranges, for that matter, and amusement rides. So you guys have all of those. But those are a few examples of some items that weren't previously covered by the ADA. When the ADA was written in the early 1990s, enacted in 92, effective 93, all municipalities was required to go through their entire inventory of existing facilities to find out what's considered an architectural barrier. A step would be considered an architectural barrier to a person in a wheelchair. A sign that's not braille would be considered an architectural barrier to a person who's blind or has a visual impairment. Loud noises could be, anyway, I think you get the gist. But essentially, we were required to have gone through all of the facilities by January 26 of 1993. That was the federal requirement. It didn't happen. It didn't happen nationwide. It happened a few places here, and it happened a few places there. People put the, they went through their facilities, they wrote a few things down, and they put a booklet on a shelf, and that's where they sat and collected dust for 30 years. Because of the lawsuits over the 20 years, the ADA was rewritten. They added grit and teeth to help with the lawsuit clog. They've added requirements to have local complaint processes, which this is that's a portion of what's required for this as well. We start with what's called an ADA transition plan. The town is required to have it. The parks are required to have it. But we're going to start with the parks. And then we'll talk to the town and see if the town is interested. But the city is also required to do this as well. And what we're going, and so I believe you have a transition plan in place. And so these are components of these are requirements of the transition plan. Our transition plan has 13 points of compliance. Physical evaluations are just 1 point of compliance. Other examples of that would be, well, internet and then communication. Those are other examples of points of compliance that have to comply. So what we have to do is we have to go through our park facilities and find out what what is accessible, what's not accessible, build what we're considering to be a roadmap for your compliance. It will be your punch list over the next 20 years for you guys to start working toward to get to 100% compliance. And
We'll never get there.
maybe not, probably not in this part board's life, but we have to start somewhere. And it didn't happen in the 90s. It didn't exactly happen in 2010. So we're here now in 2024 to try to satisfy that requirement in 1993. And if we don't do this, the federal government is threatening, they're dangling federal funds as a carrot that they will deny a municipality if they do not have these things put in place. And so that's why we're up against this. That's why we're talking about it now when it was written in 1990. So the physical evaluations that we would do, we will come, we have a team of guys, there will be 2 or 3 of us pouring over the parks. Let's say one site, we will start with parking, we will look at exterior accessible routes, we will look at building elements, any amenity that's added in the park. If the ADA applies to it, we will tell you how it applies to it, how it currently measures up to the requirements, and what you have to do to fix that. So when we tell you there's something wrong, there's always more than one way to fix it. But what we try to provide is at least one way, which we believe is the path of least resistance to fix it. So one example of that might be a playground that still had pea gravel in it. I didn't see any of that today, but a lot of our clients are surprised to find that pea gravel has not been allowed since the ADA was written. But the other surprising thing to understand is that there is no surface that is acceptable that meets the requirements of the ADA at national level. Not one. Not a single playground in the entire United States meets code because there isn't a surface that does it. It's got to meet 2 tests. One's a test for a baby's head to drop so far and not get hurt, and then another test is a person in a wheelchair to push so much force against their wheels and wheel so far without resistance. Nothing in the world does that. So right now what we do is we teach our clients to use the best practice method, and that's going to be used in engineered mulch. Thank you. And it's the way that it's applied has a lot to do with how accessible it can be. So that's kind of what we're here for. That's what we're up against, and that's what we're here to do. And we're here to hope to put a nice straw in Jan's hat before she retires and says this is what has to be done to make our parks right. And we might not have done it in the past, but by golly, we got it done before she left.
Well, and we've been, every time we do something new, we do try to make it as accessible as we possibly can. And I think we've accomplished that in restrooms that we've rebuilt and playgrounds that we've rebuilt and the splash pad and things like that. The new Iron Horse Museum depot is handicap accessible. And so anyway, but like I said, we have $70,000 in our budget, and so you'll see here on page 2 of the contract that there are several locations that are not priority, I guess, is a good way to put it. And so I wanted you to know that these are the ones that I cut out because we were at $75,000 before reimbursable expenses. So this is what we did to cut this down to the $66,350. So
now that's for the task 1.
That's task 1, yes.
2, which we've included so that it could be used as a rider for you guys if you chose to have me come in and do a training session. Let's say all the park staff needs, wants a training session, or the park's maintenance, or maybe it's the pool staff. I've trained pool staff before. How do you handle a person with a disability that comes in? Mm-hmm. So anything like that. I've worked for architects and engineers for 30 years. Now I teach and train them the ADA. So you might wonder, well, we've replaced so many buildings since, the ADA come out. Shouldn't they all be right? A very small portion of the ADA is actually building code. So the reports that we will generate will I'm sure they generally shock people at the beginning because we're writing a lot of stuff down. If it's an inch out of compliance, the law is black and white. When it says a park sign should be no lower than 60 inches minimum to the bottom of the sign. If we measure that sign and it's at, 57 inches, that's out of compliance. There's a reason that it's required to be so high. So that's, but we've added that rider in there so that you guys could use that if we come across, let's say you're doing a new building design and you want to have us check the plans for you guys. That's a service that we provide for other architects and engineers. We would like to be able to do that for you, but it's outside of the existing buildings, facilities that we've already proposed. So we're trying to add another vehicle for you guys to be able to get more consulting if you needed it, but it's only if you need it and as needed. It's not like I'm billing you that every month for the task 2. I want everyone to know that's just on call as needed based on what Ms. Jan recommends.
Do we have to spend this money before December 31st? Or does it?
It is in our budget, yes, we have to spend this money. I mean, we can encumber any, if we haven't finished at the end of the year, you're not gonna let me retire, I'm sure, so. Anyway, but you're gonna be able to encumber whatever, because we have a contract, we'll be able to encumber that if there's still money at the end that has to be paid out, so it'll be okay.
Obviously, we're not writing a check tonight for $66,000, so.
We're not.
That's what I was trying to figure out. That can go through into next
We
year.
don't even have this money yet. This is next year.
Oh,
We
this
won't
is
even
next
be able
year's
to.
budget. Oh.
The Board of Works will have to sign this in the new year, so once the new budgets are available to us, so, and David knows that, so.
Our plan was that we would get approval from you tonight, hopefully, and then go in front of the Board of Works on January the 8th. And then our guys would probably be on the ground. The 8th is your birthday, so I'm
The next warm day.
the next one.
That might be
The following. The following
We worked
week.
in cold. We're
Yeah.
not
I
going to
think,
tread through snow that deep, though.
I think we're down in Owen County the first week of the year, but then I believe the second week we're up here, and then I think we're trying to do Owen the next week and then back up here. So the beginning of the year, we've got you guys and Owen County that we're trying to get a good start to, because we try to do the bulk of our work. It doesn't make sense, but when it's cold, because when it's nice out, nobody wants to work, right? But, so that's the way we're going to try to approach this, and I've talked with Jan about this, and we'll be, scheduling everything through Jan. We won't just be coming up here whenever we want. She'll know when we're in town, we'll be very much involved with what's going on with you throughout the next year. Although the approach will be hit it heavy at the beginning, lighten up through the warmer months, and then finish it out right at the end of the year.
So the 66,000 is the evaluation. Is there a rule of thumb as to if for that money spent, that you spend 3 times that then to actually do the work, or is there any kind of a?
So this is what it's going to cost for us to come out, go through the facilities, identify each barrier, go back to the office, create a report, code verify, and then give you guys a fix.
Right.
And we prioritize it based on what the federal government says, 1 through 4. Priority 1s are always parking, get a person to the facility. Priority 4 would be things like tactile signage with, no, not tactile signage with Braille. Something hanging down below 80
An
inches.
exit sign that's too low for someone that's
There you go.
6'8", because you do have them, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
So you have no, so I'm saying, once we spend the 66,000 and get the evaluation, and here's what you need to do, there is no industry standard that says 4 times the amounts what you need to actually do the repair, to do.
Well, now the federal government tells you that, yes, when the feds come down on everybody in the state of Indiana and they would tell us, well, this is what you have to do, but then you ask them a question and they were tight-lipped about it, that they didn't know themselves. But there was some literature written by somebody in Washington that suggested that if a municipality hasn't done anything at all, back in 2011, they suggested that they may recommend that they start spending upwards of 20% of the entire budget. And that's based on, that 20% number is based on what a person can get sued for. Let's say you sue a Hilton. Well, when you go and sue Hilton, the lawyer is going to say, all right, well, this is the one you stayed at, but we're not suing that Hilton. We're suing the big Hilton, right? Mm-hmm. And so when they go after them and they find like gross negligence, that's what they're suggesting. It's gross negligence if it costs more than 20% of what Hilton has to spend, not what that little Hilton had. So that little Hilton could be sued under the big parent umbrella because they had enough money to fix that little guy, even though that little guy might have been owned by somebody else. You see what I'm saying? Right. Because they're carrying the name. Right. So that's when they're suggesting there's a term they use for that. It's called an undue burden. And that's when an undue burden threshold is reached, is when it costs more than 20% of the cost of an overall project, if it's just one project you're looking at. But if you're looking at a municipality as a whole, yes, I have suggested to mayors that if you've not done anything, you might want to think about considering using 20% of your entire budget for the entire city and town toward ADA. And what's going on in the background is we've got our Paralyzed Veterans of America is the largest group that has come together to effectively try to comb the United States at a group level to push as many lawsuits as they can to push change, because change, unfortunately, usually only happens when the feds push a municipality or a lawsuit pushes a private businessman, unfortunately.
So my next question, when you do this, you're going to tell us, here's all the things that are wrong, and thus we're now aware of those things. Yep. And thus our liability goes up.
It actually goes down.
I'm not sure if stupidity, is a defense, but, if you didn't know the height of the sign or something like that, and, somebody sues you then. But I mean, when you detail all this, how long do most communities take to get that checklist all done? 2 years, 5 years? I mean, the 20% is fine, but I think you're going to be looking at.
You're going to be looking at 20 to 30 years.
Yeah,
we get it done?
We'll get it done. I mean, because they'll keep changing it too anyway.
20 to 30 years is what you're going to be looking at. But what happens is, and I understand what you're saying, because we've had other people that's asked us this, and another part of this that is required, these reports are required to be available to the public for up to 3 years after the date of the report. So, wow, we're just putting our own liabilities out there. I've got some clients choose to put them online, some clients choose to have people ask for them. Well, and they say, well, isn't this just a whole list of our liabilities? Well, no, but a judge has to take into account that you've done your due diligence and the requirement of the ADA as a municipality, and you've taken that first step and said, okay, we've got to identify what we have. We've got to have a benchmark. We can't build that road to compliance if we don't know where we stand today, right? So a judge has to take that into account. What has this group done if they are being sued for noncompliance? What have they done to ensure that they have tried to meet their obligations? And so having all of this is very much a paper trail that stays forever. It is a living, breathing document. It's not supposed to be put on a shelf. It should be looked at each and every year. It should be updated each and every year. It will change because there will be a coordinator for that local complaint process. It's called a grievance procedure. That's the idea of that, is to keep complaints local here and out of courts, right? So you can complain to the
And they do. They do.
But it's a local process to hopefully, let's be reasonable about this. Somebody may be attorneys in here, but let's keep the attorneys out of it, right? It's not a legal issue that we're trying to work something out to give someone access that they don't have access to. And it doesn't have to be rocket science, but But you do need it on paper. I do understand what you're saying. Some have chosen to not put it online because of that fear. But I will tell you that, yes, a judge has to take into account what a person has done when they are sued under the ADA.
If they were sued, they would subpoena your report. I mean, it's not going to be, like, you can hide it if you want, but I'm just curious as to, you say, once we identify it, then, and you say it takes 30 years to do it, that's kind of unrealistic. At the same time, if I look at the same budget that has to happen at the cemetery and, the street department and every
Well,
department.
I think you still have to, I think it still has to be considered about how that can be budgeted for. And what David's saying is that we have time to set those items into a budget according, in a scheduled fashion, so that we know what.
I'm just questioning, you can put it in a scheduled fashion, but does that limit your negligence or your liability? I mean, once you've identified to say, here's the problem, you say, well, we're
working on it.
We're working on it, we should get something out. I don't know that in a court of law, they're going to say, well, they're working on it, so by gosh, if this is the reality of what has to happen in every park and building and.
It's like trees. If you mark a tree that it needs to come down, if you don't get it down pretty darn soon, something does happen with that tree, somebody will say, you knew about that tree. Why didn't you take it down before somebody got hurt, So I get what you're saying.
Just like the tree, you've got 20 different parks here, you're going to say, here's the problems, and if it's $66,000 just to identify the problems, I'm thinking you're talking $5 million or something like that to fix it all. I mean, that time we had somebody where we had a park that had railroad ties on the outside, and they had a place handicap accessible at the front end, but they wanted to have access on all sides and whatever. And, we had to, jump to that, but that was I'm just curious. I'm just,
No, what you're going to find is this is a process that's going to be a learning process, not just for you guys, but for everybody. The maintenance guys, it's going to be a process that'll teach you guys as you move forward in the future, what buildings do we hold on to? Maybe there's a reason this building doesn't pass the ADA enough and there's enough architectural barriers. This guy has lived his life. It's time to get rid of this building. So we get rid of that guy. We get a new building that comes in. We know what was wrong with that one, so we're laser focused to make sure that this new one is going to be ADA and correct, right? So, that's a big portion of it. So a lot of our clients choose to use that approach. The buildings are just old, and when they can, they'll replace them because it's putting Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid, a lot of times. And then it'll also teach you how to do things right for all your other projects. I mean, maybe you're looking at a new piece of land. Well, maybe that hilly piece of land doesn't look so nice after you've just had a report done at a hilly project that you have to have accessible routes going to every amenity in the park now, which is going to be $1.4 million in asphalt trail or something, It's going to teach your park planners, we don't just put a bench out here underneath this tree because we like it, because that's going to now cost 500 linear feet of sidewalk to get a bench out there to that, and then put the accessible seating next to that bench. So it teaches you guys how to move forward and make sure that your parks and programs are accessible as you move forward. So it's not something that can be done overnight. There's a lot of work to do in 1 year. You guys are a pretty substantial park size. We've been working with the city of West Lafayette since 2011, and they are still working on things. They are still years away. But we've worked with most of our clients. I mean, we'll get the bulk of our work done, but we still have folks that just call us up years later and just ask us questions, and we're happy to help, It's not well known nationally. There's not very many people that do what we do. We do feel we're the best. We try not to make mistakes, especially in parks, because that's where children play. And if you take a child in a wheelchair, I'm sorry, children should be deserving of access. Maybe grumpy old men like me don't need it and don't deserve it, but it's not a child, right? They don't know who to complain to. It's not their fault. So we're very, we're very proud to do what we do and thankful to do it, but we're also very meticulous when it comes to children's areas.
Do you know, and this is, again, not for this at all, but are there currently federal lawsuits against any municipality in the state of Indiana this past year? Like, are they really actively doing this
This
right
year,
now?
I'm not sure. I know 3 years ago, Brazil got hit pretty hard. There was someone in a wheelchair that couldn't get somewhere on a sidewalk, so he sued the town. The mayor said, nope, we're not doing that. So then the guy called Washington, D.C. sent their team of, I think, they have a team of people that do this. It's like 50 people. And they came there and they spent 2 weeks. And then they told the city of Brazil, you can look this up, you're going to spend, not only are you going to fix your sidewalks, but you're going to spend this much of your budget annually on doing all the sidewalks throughout the entire town until it's done. So when they waited too long and drug their feet too long and said, no, we're not going to do this for you, the feds come in and they said, not only are you going to do it, you're going to do it to the tune of this much of your own budget money per year. You're not going to do the projects you thought you were going to do. You're going to do this until it's done and done right. And I just went through Brazil last year, coming from another client, and their sidewalks are fabulous. They, yeah. So other local municipalities that have been sued, I do know Michigan City was, so was the one right next to it, starts with an L.
LaPorte, yeah.
LaPorte,
LaPorte.
thank you. Yeah, those are two big ones. You can find those on, you can just Google it. ADA lawsuit, LaPorte, Indiana, Michigan City, Brazil. Yeah, there's probably 5 or 6 other ones in the state, but those are the ones that just come to mind. And so that's how it happens when they come in, when Washington comes in town. Yeah, they won't be looking at the park, they'll be looking at the town. They'll be looking at, everything.
Thank you.
They'll probably wrangle the county into it as well.
So in residential areas where there's sidewalks, is the homeowner responsible to do that? And are they liable or?
Never. Always the municipality.
So
Regardless of.
So the city's responsible for all the residential sidewalks also?
Correct. Every time. Every time. No matter, my town has it too, a 50-50 program, and
Right.
that's great, guys, but you have a transition plan that they've had to adopt, and that's another thing. These plans are required to be adopted, not only just in your possession, but you have to adopt them as law. And so one of the things that you're adopting is the standards. You're adopting the 2010 standards as this is what we're going to use moving forward with all of our buildings. And you're also adopting the PROAG standards, which are the pedestrian right-of-way accessibility guidelines, which did not exist prior to 2 years ago. It was in the proposed rulemaking stage since 2011 up until like a year and a half ago in July. So now we have right-of-way accessibility guidelines, which didn't exist prior, and like for things like our pedestrian bridge, the brand-new pedestrian bridge that you've got going across your river. Well, prior to 2010, there was no ADA rules for a location like that. Now, because of the pedestrian right-of-way accessibility guidelines, there are. So even those would have to comply. And you'll hear about this soon. It's not going away. What they're currently going through right now is medical diagnostic equipment. And when that happens, that will be big news for a long time. That will mean every hospital and doctor's office will have to change out all of their beds and equipment so that everything's accessible. I mean, I don't know if you've ever taken anybody with a disability to a doctor's office or not, but when I go to a doctor's office, I'm usually faced with an exam table that's this high, and they just look at me and say, well, hop up there. I'll get right on that.
So have you given the same presentation to the city council, or are we the first?
I have not. You are the first.
You're the first. So this
The
money,
city has to do this as well, and really, they should be the ones that has the transition plan, which
that's what I'm asking, I guess, is that
that's not on my.
we would budget the evaluation into our budget, but obviously from here on out, we're going to need to have support to start to fix this stuff. So I didn't know if the city council's on board and said, heck, yes, we're going to give you
Well,
$100,000 a year
the city
towards-
does have some funds regularly appropriated every year for ADA work. That's how we've been able to do some of our drinking fountains, is through that, with that money. It hasn't coming right out of our own budget. So, but the drinking fountains is one of the things that we've been trying to address for a while, so. Anyway.
So, as I've just seen, with an evaluation this serious, this kind of money, it looks to me like it's going to be very expensive for the whole city to get in under the standards, which it should. I'm not saying it shouldn't. I'm just saying we got to make sure that we do what we do, spend $60,000, and then the city council says, well, we're not going to give you $100,000 a year for ADA stuff. But it sounds like as if each department's going to need to have a pretty substantial budget, and you're saying it could take 20 or 30 years. So, just curious.
And
Gotta do what you gotta do, but
once you compile your information and you send it to us, that can be put online for everybody in the city of Logansport to see,
If you choose.
if we choose, okay? How long between that point of time do we have to have a transition plan ready in case something comes up?
So the transition plan should be put in place by the city itself. And then
Okay.
you guys should be a rider underneath it because you're a department
Right.
of the city.
Right.
So we have those ready to go for the city if that's what they wish. And that's generally our task 1 and 2, and that's where it starts. And then we break task 3 out as the physical evaluations. And then a lot of times, but how long do you have? I'm sorry, I guess I'm not understanding.
Well,
There's no timeline that the federal government gives on.
but you said earlier that if you went to court, you were being sued, as long as you had a transition plan in place showing that you were working on this, you were okay. All right, so your thing comes out, whether we publish it or not, somebody, let's pray to God it doesn't happen, but somebody gets hurt or something, and now we go to an attorney, and here we go, and we don't have that transition plan yet. And we're going to be in a world of,
Yeah, the work typically starts with the transition plan.
okay.
I can't imagine the transition plan limits your liability. I mean, I could be wrong, but I mean, if something's wrong, if you're negligent or something's wrong, you say, well, you have a plan to fix that 10 years from now. I think you're still,
Concerned.
Well, part of the transition plan has to be a prioritization of the work that has to be done,
Right.
I would think, so.
It's what lays out the 13 points of compliance. So there's 2 plans that really go onto this that the federal government wants you to have. One's an ADA transition plan, and the other one's a Title VI plan. Title VI of the 1964 Discrimination Act. So one says you can't discriminate based on, disability. The other's very much the same, but it also says that. So what's interesting about Title VI is Title VI says you're going to contract with people who understand that this all has to be accessible. And if they don't have their paperwork in place, you as a municipality can't use them as a contractor. Very few people read those Title VI plans, and you've probably got one put in there as well because NDOT has required that, or they've said you don't get federal funding. But that's what that actually says. So that means that if you have a contractor that puts something down that's not accessible, you've already got the backing to make them do it right? But it also has a grievance procedure process as well. And I think when someone really gets to, I don't know when it's going to happen, but the grievance procedure could challenge an awarded contract. If you award a contract to a company that doesn't know anything about the ADA, and then you've got a company over here that clearly does, and you awarded a contract to somebody else that doesn't, Title VI, the plans that the state's telling you, or the federal government's telling you you're required to have, give you the legal vehicle to pursue that.
So I'm going to assume that you'll probably give us your suggested transition of what's the most important to fix first. I mean, is that
Yes.
something you guys do? I mean,
The path of least resistance as I see it. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you have that in the report.
Yes, yeah, so when we list an item that's a architectural barrier, let's say we're looking at a sidewalk parking space. Parking space has a vertical rise within the parking space of a half-inch high. What we're gonna tell you over here is either grind it down or use, well, if it's a gap, we would tell you to fill the gap with like an elastomeric compound, or grind it, or resurface. And, you know, if we're going to look at the slope too, I mean, you know, there may be 100 things wrong with that parking area. And then in the end, you might just stand back and say, you know what, let's just wipe the slate clean and put a brand new one in there.
But I assume you're going to say, I mean, we had someone, we did one of our last parks, we did not put fencing appropriate for autistic people. So I assume you're going to say, statistically, there are more autistic people than there are blind people. Or, I mean, are you going to kind of give us no, you're not. So we're going
No, so what we're looking at, when we do physical evaluations, we are looking at physical attributes of buildings and sites themselves. That is applicable. We do have a code book, so that is black and white. If it's not in there, we're not going to give you suggestions. You know, we're not going to say, oh, I think that wall would look better green than blue, you know. So yeah, because there's a lot of work for us to do. So yeah, it's pretty much black and white. We keep.
I just didn't know when we get this, I mean, when you say it takes 20 years, how we decide which is the biggest, I mean, what's the biggest group that's liable. You
What
know,
do we
which-
do now and what do we do 10 years?
Right, I mean, so if there's, I mean, I don't know of all the different things, handicaps we're dealing with, but if there's something that there's only one person in town that has this problem, then we should take care of those things that are, where there's hundreds of people have this issue or whatever, autism or something like that, so, okay. I beat this to death, I'm just making my mind.
No, it's very new to people who haven't heard it. I understand, and it's hard to get a grasp around, and it's harder to understand how in the world could this have been a law for so long and we haven't done anything. When you guys find, especially when they go through a building that's been recently done, and you guys just paid a lot of money for a plan to be designed by engineers and architects, and you find out that there are things that don't comply. That's hard to pill to swallow for a lot of folks. But the more time that we spend together, like I said, it's a learning process. This isn't a job where we just come in, we do our work, and we put our head down and leave. No, I'm looking at everybody around. I want to talk to whoever. I want to know what's going on. What's happening in your department? That's when I'm working with the city. I'm got to remember I'm talking to the Parks Board. But you know. Yeah, it's a very involved process, and the more time we get to spend with each other, the more you guys will learn, and as accessibility happens around the town, you will see it. You know, when you start with parking spaces and you start putting up accessible parking where there is a place that didn't have it before, people notice that. You know, I can tell you, moms use them, and disabled people, you know, moms love them. Moms love curb ramps. You know, so.
Okay, when it comes to the facilities we have in the city, buildings, parks, would you say that liability increases or decreases depending on when they were built? Like this was built before 91, this and that. Are we off the hook on these certain things? You know what I'm saying, depending on when they're built?
No, there is no such thing as a grandfather clause for the ADA. So that's why they gave us, when the ADA was signed into law January 26 of 91, July 26 of 93, no, 92 is when it came out. December 26 of 93, or January 26 of 93 is when when every municipality was supposed to have been through their existing facilities. So they were basically given a little more than 6 months to go through it and figure it out, and then start fixing it at that point, understand what's an architectural barrier, and don't create any more. It didn't happen. For the last 30 years, we've had engineers and architects creating new architectural barriers on almost every job site I've ever been a part of or on. And that's all I've done my entire lifetime is buildings. So it's very unfortunate. But I started off in Florida. In Florida, you know, I was a part of a project where we had an entire clubhouse for a golf course, red flagged on a Friday for a mirror bottom being higher than 40 inches above finished floor, and because then a child couldn't see themselves in it. You think about that next time you walk into a bar, you see a mirror way up here. And then the toilet flush valve was on the wrong side of the toilet. You had to reach over the toilet to flush it, and that's not allowed. So they red flagged it. And the clubhouse didn't open on a Friday, and that was a Del Webb project. Del Webb, they're the largest retirement community center in the planet.
See, I've heard of them, I don't know what they are.
Yeah, there was a lot of people fired over that, but that's because Florida took the ADA
All this ADA stuff.
and made it building code. So it was building code, and the building inspectors had the ability to red flag the project at the time. State of Indiana has not done that. The ADA is still required to be correct in buildings, even my code books. However, because Indiana hasn't made it building code, what's in the building code, the International Building Code, is ANSI A117, very small chapter, chapter 11. A very small portion of the ADA is in the International Building Code, so that's what they're using, and they feel like, okay, well, if we get this, then we're good. No, there's a whole lot more to that if you're the owner of the building, or if you're a municipality, because the ADA also applies to employee work areas. Anywhere there's 4 or more employees in an employee space, it's not public, but that's employee workspace, so that's considered circulation area. And that, too, is required to be accessible for employees with disabilities. So we will be looking at employee-only workstations. Municipalities are the largest employer of people with disabilities, so that's a big, big area. Even the seats you guys are in should be.
Okay.
I know it's a lot.
So I'm guessing that we need to approve this so it can be taken to the Board of Works.
Yes.
Do I have a motion to accept the ADA assessment contract in 2025 so it can be moved forward to the Board of Works for their January meeting? So moved. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you all very much.
So moved. Thank you, sir.
Unless I, which is,
You got a pen, I only have a pencil. By the way, thank you all, and I think that you have a very, very nice park system. We very much look forward to helping you guys improve it however we can.
Thank you.
Jan will be in touch next week. Okay. Have a great night. Merry Christmas.
Have a nice Christmas.
drive safe.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Administrator's management report, Jan?
What did we do?
I don't know. What did you do?
All right, well, I'm going to let Kyle talk about the clubhouse project. Lots of stuff is there, and you can see his photographs on Facebook. It's looking pretty good. Logansport Parks and Recreation Foundation held a meeting on 11/20. I think all the members that were already members have continued to be members this next term, correct? No, we didn't have any new members, so anyway. We have not put in the east side of electric and lighting at Iron Horse Park. I think that's on hold till after Christmas, right, Kevin? Yeah. Our Christmas tree lighting was very well attended, despite this extreme cold. Did any of you guys get to go?
No, I did.
I saw it on the
You
internet.
guys are all chickens, didn't want to be out there in that cold?
Went home.
There are plenty of versions on the internet.
Yeah, a lot of them.
I enjoyed watching it.
Anyway, it was a great night. I mean, despite the cold, it was a great night. We had a good evening. So, trail cameras are ordered, and we did the contract at today's Board of Works meeting. So hopefully we'll get this going here after the first of the year. Christmas in the park has been a boom. I can't believe it. It's just been amazing. When I wrote this, we'd only had 1,694 vehicles for the first 5 days. As of yesterday, or Monday, we've had 3,242 cars go through that in, I don't know, 14 days, I don't know, 12 days.
12 days, roughly.
Isn't that amazing? And we've already, $840 in donations, which is almost as much as we got from all of the season last year, so.
Most of them using the scan code thing or what?
Just actual cash
Putting that
donations
thing
into
that
the post,
Wow,
so.
that's fantastic.
It's been very, been really pleased with that, and we're still pushing. I don't know if you know, Kelly and I last week gave away 25 free Whopper coupons on Thursday night, and tomorrow night I'm giving away 25 soft touch car wash coupons, and then next week on Wednesday, Pizza's handing out 50 pork roast dinners, pork chop dinners or something. And then Friday, I'm giving away, I think I got 100 cheeseburger coupons from McDonald's that I'm going to get to hand out on Friday. So that's been kind of a new promotion that we worked with the radio station, and so that's been really helpful. So I think I'm really excited. So we have 3 billboards up. I don't know if you've seen the billboards at all, but there's one over at 18th and Main, there by the silo, and there's another one at Chase and 25 in Michigan Road, or Michigan Avenue, coming down from the church and everything, and then one right over the Midwest Eye place. They're down right there on Market Street. So,
Can I ask a question about that real quick? There's designated nights when you can't drive through it, right?
yeah, Monday and Tuesday nights are walk-through
walking.
nights. Yep.
Or is that posted on these signs or anywhere, or do people just have
It's
to?
not
know?
posted on signs, and we have signs somewhere, but I don't know if we got them out. I don't know where they're at. Do you?
But the radio station is announcing this every day, and they're mentioning that when they talk about it on the
I know
radio.
somebody-
But it's on our website too.
I just know somebody that went and said we couldn't drive through it, and they didn't realize that it was a walking only thing.
Yeah,
So
Monday
I
and
just
Tuesdays are walking nights, but I was just saying that Kelly today, Monday and Tuesday of Christmas week is probably, when everybody's out of school and got family around, we probably need to just let that go for that night, that week. So I probably,
Yeah, I let cars go through it, though.
huh?
Let cars go through it, though.
Yeah, on Monday and Tuesdays, yeah. So, but if you have the the things that they put up in front of them on the street. What do you call barricades? That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, barricades up, then you can't go through. But if they're down, you can drive through. So. It's been very well attended. I have to say, if you haven't been through, you need to go through. It looks terrific. We've had such a great response from the community. I am so proud of our maintenance staff who put it all together. They did an amazing job. They also did the tree downtown, and that was an amazing trial and tribulation there for a while, wasn't it? We had some parts missing, and they finally they came from Dallas, but they got here, and we got everything out there on time, and so, anyway, it looks terrific. And then, of course, I've met with David a couple times here. I gave him a tour this afternoon of all the parks, and we really aren't in we're not in terrible shape, honestly. Our restrooms are fairly new, they're in pretty good shape, I think. I think We have walkways to lots of pavilions. I think we need to work on our parking, and getting those designated parking spots almost in every park. I'm sure that's going to be an issue. Drinking fountains, we don't have drinking fountains that are all done everywhere. So just little things that we're doing, but
Adam needed to not think about this when he was here, but let's take the Logansport Babe Ruth field, okay? Those bathrooms are not ADA accessible.
okay.
Is that?
Well, that's one of the things that I talked to him. I said, because they're leased out by somebody else, it doesn't mean that
Okay.
we're responsible for it. So, but we can tell you what's wrong with it.
So we are or we are not responsible.
But ultimately, we are.
We're the landlord.
Like we talked about the miniature golf. He's never done a miniature golf, evaluated miniature golf before, and so, but he said it's it's leased out. It's not our responsibility to deal with that or fix it up. It's his responsibility, and so we can say, here's what needs to be done in our evaluations. But it's ultimately still the owner of the business to take care of it. So anyway, stuff we have to pay attention to. So anyway, I'll let Kara talk about the fun stuff that we've done. And I'll let Kevin talk about Fairview, and I think what else was I supposed to talk about? Yep, that's it. That's all I'm going to talk about.
Hey, come on up, Kara. Hi there.
I had to pump myself up because I was falling asleep. This is my 4th meeting for today, so.
Oh,
There's a lot of meetings.
cool.
How are you guys doing? Well, we had a blast at the ribbon cutting. I gotta tell you, I think it was our favorite ribbon cutting for Christmas in the park. The mayor came and he counted down. Did we already talk about this last month?
We what?
We didn't talk about this last month, did we?
No.
We just had perfect weather. We couldn't believe that Tuesday we had beautiful weather. It seemed really loud. And then for the tree lighting, it was freezing. So we got really lucky. I was able to walk around twice. And today I was at the Domestic Violence Task Force meeting, and Jill Reif and a couple other people were just going on and on about Christmas in the park and our parks. And one lady said, I really think that the parks add value. I didn't even get to tell you this, add so much value to the city. So it was kind of nice. It's been kind of nice to hear positive things, but I will say that the maintenance crew has outdone themselves this year. It's beautiful. Kelly is it with the sponsors and Dan, and so that's been great. We had a really great breakfast with Santa. We had 125 people register. This year we went down to one session. The 2 sessions were never full, so we decided to just compress it into one. Bailey Record sponsored the carousel, so our guests were able to ride the carousel, and we had Pam and Jeff Duncan, who were the Light Up Logansport Santa and Mrs. Claus. They were our Santa and Mrs. Claus, and then this year we also had the Grinch. And McDonald's sponsored once again, and Chase Center did a hot cocoa bar. And so we just had a blast. It was a lot of fun, and we had such a large group that we broke them up into sections so that they wouldn't all be taking a photo with Lindsay Miller at one time. So some people would get their photo taken, some people would go eat, and some people would go listen to a story with Mrs. Claus. And so now I'm just kind of putting everything away and starting our planning for Valentine's Day and Daddy-Daughter Dance for next year, and kind of looking at what camps and classes we can offer next summer. So, you guys have any questions?
Nope. Good job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. It was a blast. One of our favorite events, right? And I think that was my first event ever when I started, and now that was my 4th breakfast with Santa. So starting to feel a little.
She's an expert at it now.
Yeah, I do it in my sleep. I plan it in a half an hour. No, I'm just kidding.
Who is that, Kevin?
Come on up, Kevin.
Ho, ho, ho.
Evening.
Evening, Kevin.
Evening.
It's been a while. So I missed last Parks Board meeting. I was preoccupied with setting up Christmas in the park, if anybody missed me.
We did miss you.
Yeah, it was the last thing we were putting up. It's a tree with all the spheres in it, and we worked very late into the evening and then even into the rain that happened that night to make that tree happen. So great group of the company that we work with, Servicescape, are just real troopers. You know, they really do us a big favor, the time that they put in. So, you know, when we see the expense of, you know, their labor costs too, you know, we do a lot of the decorations, but they do the tree wraps for us. You know, a big thank you actually goes out to them too for their diligence staying here until over past midnight, that last night wrapping the trees. That's huge. A couple things on my plate is, you know, we're still, we're just wrapping up the year, trying to get some of the last little projects accomplished. We've really been hitting the Fairview bathroom project pretty strong these last couple weeks, getting it all ripped apart and getting that transformation for the next year. Always looking at ADA when possible, and I know he's going to bring insight to us that we totally overlook. I'm positive of it, but we do try our best to put those efforts, you know, to our knowledge, you know, first. So that's been a big one for us. And then the other big project, or kind of project that we've been still working on, is just our maintenance shop has just been cluttered for many years. Just random stuff, just left over from multiple projects and trash that's been brought back. So moving forward into the next year, one of the big things for us is we got to get a new facility or a new home for all the Christmas in the park decorations. We've outgrown that little shed, that 25 by 25 shed. Just doesn't hold our decorations anymore if we want to keep expanding. So we are looking at getting a pole barn out there, of course, size to be determined, but in the meantime, all those decorations have to come back to my shop to be held until we can get a new facility built. So that's kind of the big gist of why we're putting so much effort back into the shop, trying to make room for all that stuff to come back. So that's
So that's going to be priority one as far as the project that has to get done by a contractor.
When we get Christmas in the Park done, when we start tearing down January 6th, Servicescape will come out, we'll start dropping that stuff, when we will bring it back to the shop, and then we will work on getting that building taken out. And then with the pole barn being built, he said he can come in during the winter, build the pole barn, and then we can have the concrete loutman come in the spring. Once concrete's pouring, he can pour the floor. Since it has a 25 by 25 slab, you know, we're already that far into concrete. I mean, it's already a nice slab, so we're not having to pay for a 35 by 55 foot slab. We already have 25 by 25 taken care of, so it's not as expensive. But we're looking at a building right now. Like I said, it might get a little bigger. We're looking at a 35 by 50 foot building, which would more than double the square footage that we have now, which came in fairly cheap compared to what we have in our budget. I forget the numbers right now. It's under $30,000. So, like I said, there is room for maybe a little bit bigger or growth in that, depending on who we go with. So that is one of the big projects that we're going to see right off the bat out Spencer, is getting that building built, getting shelter number 2 taken down, since we have the new shelter sitting right next to it, getting that one taken out, and just getting that park ready for this next coming year, because that park is getting new water lines. That park's going to get new roads through it. So Spencer's going to be a fantastic park come next year. So That's about all I have for my updates. We've been diligently working and keeping Christmas in the Park going. And
Anything else about security cameras that I haven't seen?
security cameras, I talked with Jean today with Verkada, and so we've signed ours, and Weston's waiting till the first of the year. He's going to start putting Houston cameras in and the 18th Street camera at Little Turtle.
Ones that aren't working, right?
That aren't working due to line of sight issues. All of our other cameras still function under the guise of line of sight up to the hospital. Not the best, but they still work. But the Houston and the Little Turtle 18th Street do not work because of line of sight. So those are the first ones that are going to get updated to the newer. It doesn't need line of sight.
How many did we order?
As of right now, we have five cameras.
Okay, all right.
That are going in. And then I'm working with the Verkada sales rep and probably Dave Morris at the beginning of the year to kind of solidify the next transition. Because what Verkada wants to do, because we proposed a pretty big number at one time.
Sure.
To getting the master everything done.
Right.
Verkada said, well, yeah, that's a pretty big number. How about we cut it up for you for the next, 3 to 4 years?
Right.
At a much smaller price. We can give you everything you want in every single park, but only pay this much. So that's a discussion.
Yeah, and, I mean, we all agree that we need it in every park, but we had a really big issue we needed to take care of first and foremost, so.
Yeah, and that's what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a big one for us. So that one is definitely moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
What I forgot to mention to you is that Kevin and I met with the guy from the DNR on the field about turning that into a native planting there at Houston Park. And the DNR has about, they say about $330 an acre to put towards it. And then he thought Fish and Wildlife would have some money too.
Extra money, yeah.
So we're gonna be working with them to get that done, and hopefully they'll help us pay for these things.
Yeah, he said there should be quite a bit of money out there in their project funds. So all we've done the bulk of the process
The
for them.
clearing, yeah.
So the next part with them for it to be getting rid of the invasive stuff or doing a mass kill on everything, which would make it look terrible, but we could establish those native plants and the things that need to be growing in there to make that more of a natural prairie and grasses and stuff like that. So yeah, there is definitely funding there for us.
Okay, good,
Yeah. I
good.
was excited about that.
All right, Kyle, your turn. I know you're tired looking at that window, trying to figure out what that noise is.
I don't know if they have Christmas lights on that side of the building, but probably what's banging against the window. Okay, so Clubhouse is coming along good. I believe we're on schedule. I haven't been told otherwise. We actually have a structure up now, which is exciting, and we're getting ready to trench and run the sewer lines from the existing sewers over to the new clubhouse. I'm trying to keep everything updated on Facebook without overwhelming everyone with, one more beam of steel went up.
You're doing a good job with that.
Yeah, so that's
great.
fun. It keeps me busy. As far as course goes, so now that we've officially kind of shut down for the winter, we picked up flags and T markers today, so I guess that's the official end of the 2020.
That's why I couldn't see those.
Yeah, they weren't out there, so that's why you couldn't see
They're gone.
them. But anyway, revenue was up about 7% from 2023, which was a good year last year, and so we're just adding to that. As far as total rounds of golf, we had 24,563 rounds played this year, which is an increase of 14% from 2023. So we like those numbers, and we like to keep improving on those numbers, and I think we've got a good chance to do that. Currently, Clubhouse is open 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then I'm going to be open the next 2 Saturdays so people can come up and get season passes and gift certificates and things like that. So far, we've sold 42 season passes for the 2025 season.
That's good.
Yeah. We had 3 or 4 guys from Peru come over and buy season passes.
Really?
So
Cool.
it's, yeah, I think everything's going pretty well up there.
Good.
Yeah. As far as moving forward, we had originally thought we've been letting the construction crews use our big parking lot, which if you've been up there to play, parking is a little issue there. Was an issue at the end of the season just due to the space that we did not have. We were thinking once all the building gets put together and the construction crews move inside to work, that we would get our parking lot back.
No?
We could get it back, but it would not be in any shape for people to park in it. I mean, the heavy equipment's done a number,
It's
which is
torn out.
gonna get replaced anyway, but we just
Right.
thought, at the beginning of next year's season, when we have the boys, high school invitational and stuff, parking may be a little bit of, an issue. And then we're kind of getting a strategy together, because at some point, before we transition into the new building, we'll have to tear down the existing building, so we're not quite sure where our home will be during that transition time. But we're trying to think of every possibility, and luckily with our point of sale systems, I could stand out in the middle of the parking lot and check people in and take money and stuff, so it won't be as bad as we don't need internet to do that, so it won't be as bad as we think it will, I'm sure. But no, I went and John Smith took me out, and we stood in the building today, and I kind of went over to where the counter's going to be and was just looking at the new view, and it got me kind of excited. So it's come along real nice. Like I said, no real hiccups or anything that has been communicated to me. So yeah. Any questions?
Sir?
Yeah. Is it ADA accessible? Well, I'm good. So we got the master drawings.
I just asked Jan that a few minutes ago.
I was looking at the master drawings today, and they incorporate measurements for people in wheelchair, but I am going to go back and make sure that the flush handles are on the correct side of the toilets.
But, David has already said to me that he's willing to look at the plans and make sure everything is where it's supposed to be and how wide it's supposed to be and things like that. So
Yeah,
we'll have him do that ASAP. So, yeah. As soon as the contract is signed. So
All right.
I'll send it to him tomorrow.
Thank you, Kyle. Visitors' comments.
So we are meeting on Monday night to do what? Or not, next Wednesday night?
We're going to have committee meetings on Wednesday, probably at 5. And then we're going to have a special council meeting after that. Special council meetings are going to have maybe
The Parks Board ordinance that,
I'm going to have a Parks Board committee meeting on Wednesday, so we can move that forward to the first council meeting, January 2025.
okay. So, yeah, you'll get paid what you're supposed to get paid.
Oh,
You get a raise.
okay. All right, no visitors' comments, board comments, Eamon.
No comment tonight.
Mike?
Welcome to the Ferris Tribune. Is it TJ? JT.
JT.
James Taylor. All right, anyway. Welcome to our meeting, welcome to Logansport. This ADA stuff scares the death out of me, because I see where we've struggled to keep parks open and what parks to close and that kind of stuff. And I know that there's been discussion with the city council about geo bonds, which would allow us to do things in the parks. And I'm afraid that at some point someone says, well, you could have spent the geo money fixing up your parks, or you could have spent it on all this ADA stuff. So it scares me, because it's big. I mean, and it's so anyway, these guys see, and it drives me crazy, when we do 5-year plans and this consulting stuff that costs lots of big money. It just kills me, because you can spend that money on doing stuff for kids and families and parks and stuff, and it just, every time we have a big amount like that, I just, and they're not going to fix anything. They're just going to give you charge a bunch of money, and here's a list of stuff to do. They say it could take 20. Well, they say it's going to take 20. 30 years. So we're going to be negligent for 20 or 30 years trying to make our parks perfect for every possible situation and maintain it at the same time. So now we have to have a higher level of mulch. We're going to have to do that and replace it more often. And I know, like when we did the one at Fairview where you got a molded play surface, which works good for wheelchairs. The kids are digging out with a screwdriver or whatever. And so, I don't know. Maybe it's just a sad night for me. To me, I feel like we're making so many great things. Positives. The golf course is looking great. I've seen the aerial photos. It's great. I've seen the Christmas at the park stuff is great. It's neat to see more people going through. I like having it where it goes all the way around the park again, and then there's stuff. When we first did it, we had a lot of plywood things we had spotlights on, and now it's just, the trees look great. I mean, it's just really something to be proud of, and I just hate, and I say, and I am 1,000% behind making sure that we are sensitive to every handicap there is in the world. It just scares me, the fact that we're making such good progress to say, okay, we now need to go in and change all the toilet handles to the other side or whatever, and that kind of stuff just scares me. But anyway, we have fought through other stuff, and we have, we've got a very good city council that works with us on things, and say the GEO bond, I think, is a really positive way for us to get things done. And I've always said, and I'll go back to my normal statement, that our schools are 67% free and reduced lunches, which means we have a economic issue for a lot of families, and our parks are someplace they can go for free, and they don't have to go to Disney World. They can come to our parks, and so I'm pleased to have that as something for the families of the town to do. And and I'm very proud of all the stuff you guys do. So that's all I've got.
Jason?
Christmas in the park is great. I've driven through it like 3 times.
That's all?
Okay, Gene.
It's again, get those numbers up.
It really does look great. I think so much confusion was solved by being able to go through the normal entrance and exit the normal exit, because that always seemed to be a struggle. I remember last year seeing people driving backwards. They would get in there, they would drive backwards, and then they had to go up on the walking path to drive up there to turn because they didn't know what. So that's really great, and the tree is really great too. It's almost like, what did we ever do before we had a town Christmas tree? I mean, that's kind of when you drive by and see that whole tree with the depot with the lights on it, all of that stuff. It's like, yeah, that's the middle of town. That's the center of town, and that's the heartbeat of the Christmas spirit, I guess. And so I think that's just been great this year. So that's it for me.
Sam?
No comment.
Okay, well, as usual, Kevin, Kara, Kyle, Kelly, Jan, thank you for all your hard work. I wish all of you and your families a Merry Christmas.
Not like the other.
Yeah, I know. Wish all of you guys, board members as well, your families a very Merry Christmas. Sam, try not to get sunburned when you're in Florida.
I'll try.
And with
I'll
that,
come back with a tan, please.
with that being said, we are adjourned at 6:49.
Yes. Have one thing.